We are here today as elected members of Congress. We're here today because an unelected billionaire and his team have been given full and unfettered access to our taxpayer money and our government. They campaigned across the entire country, telling people they were going to fight for working people, but they lied. They want to use the government to further enrich these corrupt billionaires and corporations.
This afternoon, hundreds of Democrats rallied outside the Treasury Department, where Elon Musk's team gained access to the central payment system last week. It's the payment system that controls about $6 trillion of payments. The protest was called Nobody Elected Elon. About 24 members of Congress also tried to access the Treasury, demanding answers on Musk's power grab, and were denied entry. Joining me now is one of the lawmakers who participated in that protest and led the attempt to enter the Treasury, Congressman Maxwell Frost, Democrat of Florida, member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Congressman, it's good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
So we've got some reporting here about what has been happening in the Bureau of Fiscal Services, which is the central payment system. And the story's a little unclear. There's been some talk that Musk's person, it might just be one person, has read-only access, meaning he can just see what's happening in there, or maybe has actual read-write access, is changing the code. Maybe they want to go in and individually block payments that Elon Musk doesn't like. What are your concerns about what is happening specifically at Treasury?
My main concern is what we're showing right now. It's the fact that we don't know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And the Oversight Committee, we have jurisdiction over the entire federal government. We have not been approached. We have not been sent a memo. We have not been told why a private citizen, Elon Musk, who nobody elected, and his small goon of tech bros have the ability to go into the federal payment system and access what's going on, whether it's read-only or whether they're actually able to access the payments, stop payments, or send payments out. We have no idea what's going on. And what we have to do is look back a week ago. Trump fired pretty much every inspector general in the entire country federally. And then a little bit later, we hear that Elon Musk now has access to the federal payment system with zero oversight. And the question is, what is to stop him from using that information to enrich himself? He is a man who has built his money in part by exploiting the data of Americans. And now this guy has all of our Social Security numbers. I mean, this is completely ridiculous. And the questions have to be asked. What if he's stealing money? We don't know. There's no way to know because the systems that were in place to hold things accountable have been ripped away by Donald Trump, and Elon Musk looks like is reporting to nobody.
Yeah, we've got reports of an email server being attached to the OPM system, possibly in violation of federal law. Is it your understanding that what's happening here is just bad and reckless or illegal as well?
It's illegal. If a private citizen were to access the same database without the blessing of Donald Trump, it would actually be considered a felony. And this is even worse because this is some random hacker in some basement doing something for fun. This is a billionaire with a company that can actively use that data to help enrich him and help his company. Not just that, but all the systems of oversight have been taken away. So I believe it is criminal, it is illegal, and we as members of the Oversight Committee not only deserve but must have the ability to conduct oversight on what's going on in that building behind closed doors. Donald Trump has talked about draining the swamp. He is the swamp. Elon Musk is the swamp. And now they're in a position where all of these systems and people that we had in place to protect the payment system, to ensure that there's no abuse, waste, and fraud have been taken away. So nobody knows what's going on behind those closed doors. And I don't believe any of the BS coming out of President Trump's mouth for a second. So now it's up to us as members of Congress to actually go to that building like we did today. That's not normal. You know, as members of Congress, usually Treasury Department will send people to us so we can hear from people during hearings. But the big problem is that Chairman James Comer on the Oversight Committee is the ultimate Trump lapdog. So we're not going to have any hearings of substance. So we had to go physically and pull up to that building and say, let us.
Might ask, do Republicans care that Trump is doing away with them, bypassing any kind of congressional oversight, their ostensible purpose? It seems that they don't care at all. Here's the Speaker, Mike Johnson.
I think he's taken appropriate action. Look, we're excited about everything that President Trump is accomplishing. He's doing a lot by executive authority, which we applaud, and we're going to follow that up and really reinforce what he's doing, the agenda, through legislation.
We pay his salary as taxpayers, and he sounds like a cheerleader. Joining our conversation is senior editor for Slate, host of the Amicus podcast, Dahlia Lithwick, is here. Also joining us, former chairman of the RNC, now co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, Michael Steele is here. Michael Steele, I can see you're fired up from here. You go first.
Yes. So here's the deal. You asked the question, do Republicans care? No. The Speaker just made that very clear. You're right. He is a cheerleader for all of this. And there will be no slowing of this train. All of us need to get our heads out of the clouds of thinking that somehow, as we were talking in your last segment, the folks say, well, I hope we can work with them. They don't want to work with you, boo. They want to take you out, and not for dinner, okay? Just so you understand what going out is. They want you out of the picture. They want you powerless and groveling. They are now the superiors. They're now the ones in charge. 50 years of retribution, and going back to Republicans complained about every little thing, all of that's coming back now. And so, yeah, I think we're in a position where we see the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader in the Senate, just making the lane wider for the tools of destruction to flow through down that Appian way, if you will, if you need a visual. All of these things coming into the great city to tear it down and to blow it up. The nominees for, Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, Department of Health, they're all getting passed. Everybody's running around this town acting like there's some controversy here, that Republican senators are concerned and perplexed and worried about, whether or not this person is qualified. They don't give a damn if these people are qualified. They don't. Why are we pretending they do? Everybody's now talking about Senator Cassidy like he's going to do something monumental, like, oh, dare I say it, vote against Donald Trump's nominee? Come on. So I think we just need to, get ourselves focused on what is coming, Nicole. And all of these, folks who stand in the democracy space, like myself and many others, we need to gird ourselves not to sit in a hunker and wait for incoming, but to go charge those battle lines and to make sure that the American people are aware of what is about to happen to them. There are a lot of families and communities, as you well know, in the health space, in the economic space, in the government space. Pick a space that will be poorly served by this administration and its ilk in the form of cabinet secretaries and undersecretaries. And people are making decisions about how we live our lives in this new America with a K.
Dahlia, the courts have replaced Robert Mueller and Jack Smith and Liz Cheney and the January 6th Select Committee as the people who are coming to save us. And I just want a sort of a reality check as to whether or not that is, one, accurate, and two, healthy.
Is it healthy? I'll do the second one first. It's not healthy. There's supposed to be a three-legged stool, as Michael says, and Congress has sort of curled up in a ball, in a furry little ball at the president's feet, and that's the end of that. So we only have one entity now that can check both the legislature and the executive, and that's the courts. Is that enough? Look, I think it's useful to remember that in the first Trump administration, right, we remember what it was like in the first few weeks with the rollout of the Muslim ban and the courts that leapt into action, and not just federal courts, right? We had all sorts of, we have to remember this is a federalist system, and we have state attorneys general around the country who are leaping to the ramparts to do the work. So we don't have to just sort of hope that a couple of courts are going to do the right thing. As you said at the top, we've already seen injunctions. I think we're going to see more fairly quickly from a bunch of federal courts and from other, alarmed jurists. The real question is, and this is the one that I think a lot of lawyers are sitting with right now, is what happens when there's a court order. And unlike the Muslim ban, where we remember that the Trump administration burnished it past a second, burnished it past a third. What happens when the Trump administration says, yeah, take your court order and make me? And that's what I think, that's a classic constitutional crisis. And I think we might be days away from that. In other words, even a maximalist ruling from a court, an injunction that should stop this.
Folks, we're dealing not with the on the paper, we're dealing with the real world. And in any real definition, Mike Johnson is not speaker, because Donald Trump and Elon Musk and seemingly hundreds of members of Congress, not every single last Republican, but 90% of them, maybe 95, have basically said the Senate and House do not exist in our mind. We're not putting any legislation forward, at least not anything big, because everything that Trump wants to do, he's just doing through thuggery. We don't exist. And so, as I said around Christmas time, you guys remember this, I don't care what it says on paper. They can give him the gavel, they can put little speaker thing on his door. Mike Johnson can get the salary of speaker, but he's not speaker. Nancy Pelosi would never tolerate this, and neither would previous GOP speakers. Yes, when your party is in power, you let your own president get away with things more. That's a reality. Pelosi would look the other way. Previous GOP speakers would look the other way when their team was in power. But if they tried to fully erode the power of the speakership, no, she wouldn't tolerate that. If Obama and Biden were trying to do even things we agreed with on this channel, but doing them the way they're doing them, without any congressional oversight or approval, just destroying things without any, violating legislation, they would stand up for the office of Congress. Johnson, he's been removed in every single way except on paper.